participating. Our next two sessions are going to focus on a topic that the NCCCO Foundation identified as a new and important topic that we should and need to help the industry address: computer literacy, or more specifically, the lack of computer literacy and general technology literacy among those working in the crane industry. These, I'm going to give you just a couple examples, again, why we identified it as an issue, of things that we've heard from existing operators out there. These are quotes. "I am computer illiterate. I'm not good with computers technology. I'm old school. I'm the guy that's computer illiterate and every other kind of illiterate other than crane illiterate. I'm not good with the mouse. I'm not good with the computer. I'm older. I'm not good with the computer or the phone." So again, I'm sure these comments or similar comments sound familiar to many of you who are or know crane operators. As technology growth continues to become more integrated into everything, including testing, daily work tasks, the inside of the cab, we at the Foundation believe that the lack of computer literacy will have a major impact on the current and future workforce. And therefore, it is important to us to provide information and resources to assist people working in the crane industry and those who train and employ them to address that problem. So today's sessions and some resources that I'm going to announce a little bit later are the first steps in our efforts. I'm now happy to introduce our next presenter, Dr. Krista Wojdak. Professor Wojdak drove down from Appalachian State University to join us in person today. Dr. Krista Wojdak has an extensive background with instructional and curriculum design and development and is a professionally certified facilitator. She has a deep knowledge of the learning sciences in the learning design field, on which she grounds the learning experiences she designs, develops, and facilitates. She is passionate about developing learning experiences that foster growth and activate human potential, and enjoys working with growth-oriented teams and organizations. She has more than 25 years of experience working as a leader and innovator across education, corporate, and nonprofit organizations on a range of topics related to teaching, learning, and innovation. I also want to note that she was also involved in developing some of the new computer literacy resources for the NCCCO Foundation that I'll be announcing a little bit later. She's going to talk to us about an important and growing issue within the crane industry, the difficulty of helping people learn and get comfortable with technology. Please join me in welcoming the professor. Thank you very much for being here today.
Hi. I am happy to be here today. I'm even more happy now because hearing those comments that TJ read was hurting my heart a little bit. As you noticed in my biography, commitment to growing human potential, and I can't do it. I can't learn technology. I'm computer illiterate. The brain can learn. People can learn under the right conditions. So that's a lot of why I do what I do, and I'm glad to be here with you today to talk through some of that as soon as I get the buttons right. Okay, so a little bit more about me informally. You just heard my bio. Instructional design and technology basically means that I spend my days thinking and researching around how our brain works, how we learn, and matching that with new technologies and trying to help people learn, support people's learning based on what we know about how we learn. So I've been in the field about 25 years now, which means that I have coached professors through learning how to use PowerPoint for the first time and taught K-12 teachers how to start using the laptops in their classrooms, and worked out in consulting roles in business and industry to talk about how we can design innovative and collaborative learning. So our goal here today, what I hope that we can accomplish, is to have a conversation around some of those things that we now know about how we learn. And there's a lot that's happened in the last 10 or 20 years that really kind of puts a lot of what we thought we knew about learning into perspective. So a lot of the things that I'm going to tell you today, most college professors might not know because they're trained in chemistry or biology or history and don't really take classes on teaching and learning. So this is where I spend my time kind of digging into what do we know about teaching and learning and how can we best support anybody and everybody with learning, because when I hear people say, I can't, I grew up saying, I can't do math. I'm not a math person. Well, now that I know what I know about how the brain works, I think I could have done math. I still don't because I'm somewhere else. But so I hope that this can be a conversation. So please ask questions. I've got a couple opportunities for you to chime in and talk with me. I know that I know nothing about your field, and I know that even more now after listening to Andy for 30 minutes. So I think I picked out a couple of words in that presentation. So please talk to me so this can be a conversation. I'm going to give you an opportunity to start that. So I'd like for you to think back, reflect, go down memory lane a little bit. If you've taught a teenager how to drive, the first time you did that, or if you're younger than me and can think about the first time you learned how to drive and step behind a wheel, or if you teach crane operators how to drive. Take a minute to think about what those experiences were like. Then I'd love to hear from a couple of you of things that kind of rise to your mind when you remember the process of either learning how to drive or teaching somebody how to drive. And just shout it out if you have some reflections or reactions. What was that like? Scary. Okay. Was that you learning how to drive, or are you teaching somebody how to drive?
I was trying to teach my daughter to drive a truck on two-lane highways and big trucks coming the other direction.
Okay, so lots of emotions all the way around her and you, I assume. Okay. So there's fear there. What else?
It's not driving. When it was at age 15, I got a job as a lifeguard. I was ecstatic. This is great. I'm 15. I'm going to be a lifeguard. But I didn't realize that part of being a lifeguard was more than just sitting up in the stand and watching everybody. I had to teach swimming lessons.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that. And it was quite a learning curve. And then I realized, just teach what you know.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And it worked.
Oh,
But it was daunting at first.
okay. So daunting experience. So we have scary, we have daunting, but kind of settled into the flow. What else? Any other experiences out there?
I was just going to say more complicated than I thought it would be, especially with teaching children to drive. You think it's like, well, you drive, but then becomes, don't do that, don't do that. That's the wrong instinct. And then you kind of just think, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Okay, so fear, complexity, thinking through the process.
I was sitting here thinking, and I think it's taking things for granted. Sort of what TJ said. You know, it's kind of like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, yeah, I guess you're learning, right? So you take things for granted that people know.
Yeah, like when do
You know,
I
you're
put the
teaching
blinker
your
on?
teenager how to drive a car, and you think they already know where the brake pedal is.
Right,
But they don't.
right,
Or maybe they do, maybe they don't, but you think they do.
right. Okay, so I decided to frame this, oh, did you, another hand back here?
There's a little bit difference between a computer and teaching somebody to swim or drive because they've been observing for a while. When it comes to the computer or an LMI screen in a crane, whereas that's a lot of times they're introduced to it for the first time. It's not like they go beside their mother or father for 15, 16 years watching them.
Okay, interesting point. We're going to be keeping in touch throughout this. That's a great point. Okay, so I decided to take this through the lens of driver's ed. So this was my son, a 12-year-old in the back seat when I was getting ready to give his big sister her first driver's ed lesson. And he was like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm buckling up. So what was happening in the front seat with his sister was a lot of what you described. Okay, Mom, where do I put my foot? What do I do next? Okay, do I turn this way? She was petrified. So it was in that moment I was like, okay, Mom, think about what you teach and let's back this up a little bit, because there was a lot of emotions going on, and that was getting in the way of her being able to think through. She might have been watching me for years, valid point, but this was her first time, and that flew out the window for her. We were at ground zero. So I want to talk about this kind of process just as a way to talk about how our emotions work, how our brain works, and how those two come together when we're teaching new skills. So the first part of this, this is a little bit of research, but just a little bit to talk about one of the things that we've learned in the teaching and learning world is that you can't take emotions away from the learning process. And that's something that we thought for years and years and years. This is a cognitive thing. We just need to think about it. Students just need to sit here and listen, and they'll learn it. We have learned through years and years of research that our brain is all networked together, and the emotions interact with the cognition, and they are part of the learning process. And so one of the implications of that that's come out is there's like an optimal level of arousal. And by arousal, I mean you've got your stress kicking in, you're paying attention, you're alert, and you're focused on the task. So when my son was in the back seat, he was down here. He was chilling. He was buckled up. He didn't care, whatever. He was like that when he started driving, too. And I was like, nope, son, you need to come up here a little bit. Both hands on the wheel. We're not doing the two fingers thing yet. Pay attention and be a little bit more concerned about the fact that you're operating a machine that could do some damage. My daughter, on the other hand, from the day one, was all the way up here. She was so stressed out and she was petrified that it took a lot of work to get her to do the basic things that we take for granted. So the researchers will say that when we're here, we're paying attention, we're alert, and our brains are ready for learning. When we are stressed out, when we think we can't do it, the parts of our brain that we need to learn literally go offline. So it's like the same thing as primitive days when we were scared about the woolly mammoth running up behind us. We stop thinking and we run, and that's what our body's instinct is. When we get scared, when we get traumatized, when we're too stressed out, it's really hard to access those cognitive parts of our brain that we need to do the things. So just a little bit about what we've learned about anxiety. So as another example, I started rolling in here about 10 miles away. My palms started getting sweaty. I got that little jittery feeling. And I was like, all right, Krista, this is just your body giving you the energy you need to go up there and say what you need to say and sound intelligent, hopefully, and not fall on your face. This doesn't mean I'm scared, although it could be interpreted as that, and I did interpret it as that a lot of times in my career. It's just my body kicking in to make sure that I was alert, paying attention, and ready to do a good job. So what does that mean? It means we do have kind of an optimal level. So if we get the guy in the cab with the AirPods on, with the texting on his phone, it might not be where we want him to be to make sure that, he's doing all the things that he needs to be. But we also know, and this is where I spend a lot of my time, when we get into that anxiety cycle, when we say we can't do it, I'm not a computer guy, I don't know how to do this, we're literally shutting our brain's ability down to learn. So that level of anxiety can really cut us down or impede our ability to learn. Okay, so emotions matter. We're going to stick a pin in that for a minute, and I'm going to move on to rational part, okay, the cognitive part, what's going on in our brain. I'd love to do a little bit of an activity. Are you all game? It might feel silly for a minute, but I promise I'll make a point. Are we game for it? Sure. Awesome. All right. You need something to write on, pen and paper, old-fashioned. I know, I'm supposed to be talking about technology. Okay, so you have a math task to do. I'm going to give you a math task. And while you're doing a math task, I am going to be saying some words up here. And after I'm done and after you're done, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, okay? So when I tell you to go ahead, I just want you to start writing down by twos, 2 to 60. So 2, 4, 6, 8, just start at 2 and write by twos all the way from 2 to 60, okay? All right, go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, questions. To what was pledged allegiance? You can write them down or shout them out. The flag, okay. What country was mentioned? Okay, according to the passage, for what does the flag stand? Okay, and the flag symbolized how many nations? Nation. I caught that. What deity was mentioned? Okay, all right, easy peasy. Next task, we're going to do this again, a little bit differently. Your task this time is to start at 100 and go backwards by sevens until you get to 2. So 100, 93, all the way down to 2. Okay, you ready? Okay, go ahead. A good name is like a precious ointment. It fills all about and will not easily go away, for the odors of ointments are more durable than those of flowers. Okay, you can stop now. I won't make you go all the way to 2. Okay, what is a good name like? Here's your quiz. Here's your quiz. What is a good name like? Precious ointment. Why is a good name good? What odors are more durable? Ointment, yes. All right, good one. Let me see. What's the general point of the passage? Flowers. Okay, so I'm guessing if I made you write down your answers and score them, it would look something like that, right? So you got all of them the first time and maybe 1 or 2 the second time. All right. So let's talk about what happened. Anxiety and stress. Familiarity, concentration. Okay. What about familiarity and concentration? Let's dig into that just a little bit.
We already knew the passage, and the numbers were easy versus the second one you had to do the math in your head, and we weren't familiar with the passage at all.
Okay, so what did you find yourself doing? Picking one? Okay. Okay. Okay, so anybody want to venture to what the moral of the story is here in terms of learning and teaching and learning? Okay, so task A, we would call those automatic processes. So as long as you grew up, assuming you grew up in this country saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school every day, you know that automatically. You don't need much energy or much thought to think about what's in there. And the task was easy, so that was pretty automatic too. There's actually usually a second one that I put in between here that has an automatic math task and then a reading passage that's a little bit more challenging to kind of make the point, but for the sake of time, I just did the two. The second one, conscious, they were both conscious. You really needed to concentrate on one or the other. You couldn't do both, so we know that we can't multitask besides, even though everybody tells us that we can, and we commonly say that when we're doing cognitive tasks, like you said, you have to pick one or the other because our brains can't do both. But they were both very conscious, so we had to give a lot of attention and a lot of work to thinking about what it was doing. How does that translate, do you think? Anybody want to venture out there as to why I decided to throw this in here? Okay, it takes time and practice for new skills. So again, to go back to the driver's ed part, my daughter driving, we pull up to a stop sign. She's scared. She doesn't know any of the skills. She's never done them or performed them before. It's, Mom, when do I put my blinker on? Mom, when do I press the brake? Mom, is this okay? And so, like I think you said, like the complexity of, oh, okay, wait a minute. Or TJ said, I'm sorry, the complexity of, wait a minute, I've been hitting the brake and throwing on the blinker and slowing down just in time for many, many years. That's automatic to me. It's very, very conscious to her. It was very, very conscious to her because it was a brand new skill. She hadn't practiced it. She didn't know what the reaction of putting her foot on the brake. She didn't know exactly when the blinker was supposed to go on, and she's a rule follower. She wanted to make sure it was the exact 15 feet or whatever it is. So all of this stuff is happening in her head at once. So all of it is very conscious practice. So we practiced a lot, and it took her a long time to even find out where her place was in the road and get her car positioned. And again, I'm going back thinking, wow, all of this stuff is automatic, but for her, it's very, very conscious. We had our meltdowns. We had our, I can't do this is scary. We got over it because we practiced one skill at a time. So I've done this with college professors too, with PowerPoint. I was called a PowerPoint technology therapist at one point because it was, I can't do this. What does this mean? Why am I clicking this button? It's a new skill. We had to back it down. We had to do one skill at a time, and we had to practice that skill until it was automatic. So emotions, let me go back. Sorry, let me refresh. Let me go back. Is that not the go back button? So we now know emotions matter, so emotions can get in the way and either help or hurt our learning process, and we know that it takes time for new skills. It takes time and it takes practice before those skills are automatic. So let me talk a little bit about memory, and I promise I'll bring it all together and get off your stage, but just a little bit about memory. What we know about memory is we have a thing called sensory memory. So we can see, we can hear, we can smell, all kinds of stuff. Excuse me, that's not limited. We know that we have a long-term memory. And they say that you can pack a ton of stuff in there. The capacity is almost infinite, unknown. I beg to differ with that since I've been getting older, but that's what they say. You can put a lot of stuff in there and it stays there. But there's also another process called working memory. So somewhere in between us seeing and hearing things and it getting into our long-term memory so it's usable and we can learn and develop those skills, we have to make sense out of that information. And the reason why I have a random picture of a bottle on this screen is because it's referred to as a bottleneck. So outside, there's all this stuff that we can see and perceive. We have capacity to store it all in our memory, but we have to do something with that information in order for it to stick in long-term memory. And so that's where things get tricky from a teaching and learning perspective. So if we go back to the example of driving, it takes a lot of time. So when my daughter was learning how to stop and put the foot on the brake, and she was afraid, and she didn't know when to put the blinker on. Her brain was trying to process all of that at the same time. And it took a lot of time and a lot of practice before her working memory was able to make sense of it enough that she was remembering and recalling those skills and doing them time and time again. Okay, so if we know that emotions can impede or support learning, if we know that new tasks or new skills demand a lot of focus and practice in order for us to automate them so that they're not conscious and they're not taking up all of our energy and attention, and we know that we have limitations to how we process that information in order to get it into our memory so we can learn it. What do we think that means? What are the implications? I'd like for you to take, how many minutes do I have left, DJ? I have 5 minutes? Okay. I'd like for you to take 1 minute, talk to the person next to you, and consider this question. So what does it, if we know all these things, what does this tell us about how we teach and how we train? So if there's one takeaway from these few tidbits that I gave you, what is that one thing that you would take away from this? So take 1 minute and talk to the person next to you, and then I'd like to hear some of what you came up with, then I'll give you some of my tips. Okay, I think that was about a minute-ish. Who has a tip, a strategy, a takeaway that they would like to share? What's that? Oh, yes, if you can raise your hand so we can get a mic to you. Who would like to share strategy, tip, takeaway?
Patrick wanted to tell you was that you need to take it in small bites and make sure they practice.
Fabulous. Yes, small bites, and that's part of the working memory capacity. So when professors stand in front of the room and lecture straight for 50 minutes and complain that students aren't learning, they have overloaded their working memory capacity in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And that's not a kids these days thing, that's a learning thing. So chunks, I talk a lot about chunking, small chunks. Okay, excellent. Another one?
We sort of took it from the point of view of, in our trade, people build walls, or they have this emotional attitude, I can't do this, maybe what you said a while ago. So you have to sort of try to help them get past that, and then don't have unrealistic expectations that they should learn this in about 2 minutes flat, so they can build their. And then the last one, of course, I looked at that and I said, you know what, that kind of tells me that not everybody involved, or everybody that's trying to learn something, is going to learn at the same level, at the same rate, and even in the same style.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're hired. Yes. Yes, and true story, my first job out of my doctoral program was down in Alabama, and I had a woman who was getting ready to retire and in the faculty who refused to come to any of my workshops. She just was too old, she didn't want to learn it. One day I had everybody in a workshop in another room, and I kind of snuck out at a break and snuck down the hallway, and she got in her typewriter out of her closet and was typing, looking over her shoulder. And I said, okay, you and me, let's go to this empty room. And I sat down side by side with her, and I showed her some of the basic capabilities of word processing, and she went, oh. And then we took it down to that very basic, what is it, how can I do it, and why would I want to know? And she was amazed when you didn't have to count 2 spaces to center something. You could just click a button and it would center. So yeah, breaking it down and getting them in that space where they felt comfortable asking questions. Anybody else? I think you're going to tell me it's time. Okay. One more, and then I'll give you mine real quick.
So the discussion that we had was exactly how any type of distraction really takes your mind away from the core that you're trying to do. And, we did the 2, 4, 6, no problem. We understood what you were saying. But once we started subtracting 7 from 100, we got derailed there, and we got derailed on what you were saying.
Yeah, and I've spent a decent amount of time trying to debunk that multitasking myth. Because, when technology started to proliferate, it was like, oh, let's put it all in the classroom, because kids these days, they learn with all these devices around, so they should have all these devices around when they're in the classroom. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing the research that you can't do that. You can't, it's called task switching, so you can switch back and forth, and we all do that on a regular basis because of what we have access to. But if you really want to learn something, you need to focus, and those distractions are taking away from that focus. Okay, so my time is at an end. Creating a just right challenge zone. So somebody who has never used a mouse before in their life isn't going to be able to navigate through a web-based computer testing system easily. They're going to need time to figure out how the mouse works and how they navigate around the screen, and they're going to need to be able to do that at their pace while they're comfortable. So making them comfortable, chunking, again, those small steps. Let's just spend some time working on the mouse and general navigation. And by the way, you can't break anything, okay? Creating that safety net for them. And then thinking about, again, they're a whole person in there. So if they just came off the job, they're exhausted, they haven't eaten, they're sitting in front of a computer and they're trying to learn this brand new skill, they might not be ready for that learning once the anxiety kicks in and their hormones and their cortisol is going all over the place. So again, establishing the environment for them to feel safe and comfortable to master those skills. And connect to what they know. If there's a way to teach them how a mouse moves that's similar to how you navigate the crane, or something, try and make those connections. I remembered nothing of what Andy said, some cool digger something, I don't know, because I had no knowledge of any of the terms in the fields. It wasn't connecting to anything I know. We know that people learn best when you can connect new knowledge to things that they already know. Okay, so those are my tips. Did you want to leave?
Time for a couple questions.
Okay, couple questions. That's my wrap up for that, other than questions. Other than going back to, the comments from the beginning, people can learn and people can grow, and we aren't born math people or science people or computer people or not computer people. And our brain is amazing, and even into our older years, it continues to learn.
So I've got one, relating specifically back to the computer literacy part, because I think this applies to everything, obviously. But any thoughts, or you've dealt with people that are struggling, like you said, with PowerPoint, et cetera. So for those in the room or online that are trying to deal with people that are, like I read, I don't understand how to use my phone or a computer or a mouse. Any thoughts there in terms of specific things about like how to approach that, like in your experience with that before, like the anxiety's high, right? So how do you start that conversation?
Yeah, and I think the two things, and I think, the first part is to try and get the emotions down from that, that end of the spectrum where they're so wound up and so like thinking that they can't do it, that they're, literally shortchanging their ability to do so, to try and build their confidence, get them settled down a little bit, because that will open up their capacity to be able to do so. But then it's breaking it down into like where they need to be. Do they know how to navigate using a mouse? Okay, well, let's go through the different places on a computer that we can navigate to. They don't know how to use a mouse, then that's where you start, and they practice that until they're comfortable. If you don't know the difference between answering a phone call and taking a picture on your phone, that's where you start. So what is the most basic skill that they need to conquer, that they need to practice, and that they need to make automatic before they can go to the next one?
I have a quick one, I think. I think you mentioned your daughter was a nervous wreck, and your son was like, this will be easy. So you have two different people learning to drive, confidence on one side, scared to death on the other. Even though the confident person might not have any more knowledge about what they were going to do than the scared to death person, what causes, I mean, in your training, what do you know? What causes people to be that way?
Yeah, considering I gave birth to both of them, that's a great question. But it's, yeah, I mean, I think, the nature-nurture debate could go on for a long time. There are days where I wonder if I didn't know that I'd given birth to both of them. So I think some of it is trait, and some of it is just comfort level. And my son is not, he wasn't cocky, but he's just a really go-with-the-flow, temperament-wise, go-with-the-flow kind of guy. So this is something that came to him. He wasn't too worried about it. Like, he was a great, teaching him to swim was the same way. He just kind of flowed with it. Teaching my daughter to swim, same way. She wanted to know how to do all the things and how to do them right. And in the middle of trying to do all the things and do them right, I was trying to keep her from drowning. So a lot of it was kind of their temperament or trait. And they were kind of on the opposite ends, where this one I had to like, we're safe. Let's calm down a little bit. And with him, I had to say, okay, let's pay attention a little bit more. All right, thank you.